On today's show, was giving Kawhi Leonard an extension in the middle of the season a mistake? And also, going to be talking about Paul George and the conversation surrounding him at the current moment and his future on today's Locked On Cancun Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in the great city of LA and just finished my 19th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I'm currently making content on the NBA playoffs as they continue. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, where I want you to let me know what you think. Was it a mistake to give Kawhi Leonard an extension midway through the season? I know there was a lot of people on both sides of the fence on this on YouTube. Twitter, for whatever reason, was completely in favor of it and getting mad at me for even questioning it back then. But this episode is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is the best place to get killer last-minute deals on tickets for games, and the price decreases as you get closer to the event. All you got to do is download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. But all right, let's just talk about it, right? And we're going to be talking about PG as well, and an email that the Clippers sent out to fans. I just want to read it because it tells you a lot about the organization's thought process and what they're selling to us. Now, we signed Kawhi Leonard to a contract extension in January, and I was very like, what? That my first thought when I saw it was, what? Now that the season's over, I can just unleash all this like in raw form. Because even though Kawhi was playing at such a high level, like that was when we were trying to get him in MVP conversations when we were around the 1 seed, the Clippers paid him before we got to the whole point of like what's the point, right? What was the point of this past season? Actually, you know what? I will say it was to get a top seed, but the number one goal is to have 2-1-3 healthy in the playoffs. And I know you might be saying I sound hypocritical because didn't you say you got to play every game and you can't just be like, as long as we're healthy in the playoffs? Yes, I do say that, and I still stand by that. But obviously the number one thing is to have Kawhi healthy in the playoffs. We just believe, and I would include myself in this, I believe that you just got to play every game you can to get in the best shape possible. And then you got to also be able to get a good seed, build the habits, and then hopefully you're healthy in the playoffs, you know. Everybody's banged up at that stage anyway. But the load management, you know, that's the sad part is we're probably going back to that next year because the knee inflammation, that literally just sounds like he was overworked, which just tells me and should tell all you that Kawhi Leonard can't handle what the proper expectations are for a number one option right now throughout a season and postseason anymore. And, like, don't tell me he didn't have enough help. Like, James Harden and Paul George, while they still would have their fair share of games, they looked like we couldn't even play without Kawhi. They still were able to win the same amount of games as the number one seeded Oklahoma City Thunder without Kawhi Leonard. And honestly, the 2 games that we brought Kawhi back hurt. I'm not one of those people that believes that we would have beaten them if Kawhi had never even tried to come back. But I think that, okay, let's say maybe we win one more game. The fact that we won 2 games without him and Oklahoma City did the same thing tells you that Kawhi Leonard does have some help. And that shouldn't be like foreign to any, or like wild to say. There were definitely times, of course, where they looked like, especially defensively, they were lost without him. But that's because I think you also got to look at James Harden and Paul George and who they are as players at this stage of their careers. And when they're so inconsistent, and it's about offense mainly. Their defense, you know, Paul George, when his offense isn't good, his defense really seems to suffer, because of the mentality. You know, he gets discouraged. He doesn't try as hard. Then Harden, 60% of the time, you're probably not getting someone that's going to try very hard on the defensive end. At this stage of the season, that was like around his best stretch where he was pretty solid nightly, doing a couple of things, getting his hands active. Effort was solid. But we committed to Kawhi in that moment. And I was just like, can we at least see him play a healthy playoffs first before you commit to him long term? And they were like, people were saying, you don't want to have those tough conversations in the summer when he can opt out of his deal and leave for nothing potentially. Same with Paul George. But like, why not? Like, why not have the tough conversations? You want to do it with Paul, so you don't want to do it with Kawhi? Paul George is the one that was healthy for the Western Conference Finals run the whole way through, not Kawhi. And I'm not saying Paul George should get paid more. I am definitely not saying that. But this, just because Kawhi Leonard is so much better at basketball, and I acknowledge it, he's so much better at basketball, does not mean that he should have gotten different treatment than Paul George, because he hasn't proven he could stay healthy. And now that the season's over, we're all less encouraged than we were in January. I was just such a knee-jerk kind of move. Now, let's analyze it from certain ways, right? Had we not given him that extension, he and Paul George were literally making the same amount of money this year. $45,640,084. That's their salary according to Basketball Reference. That's insane. That's a lot of money. But Kawhi Leonard to me is worth that money. Paul George is not. And he doesn't play up to that, by the way. He doesn't. He plays like a $35 million player in today's market, not a $45 million player. And next year, they have a player option for $48,787,676. I'm sorry, $48,787,676 would have been what they were getting in 24-25. So they have a player option for that, which means they can opt in or opt out. If they opt out, they're a free agent, unrestricted. If they opt in, obviously they become a free agent the next summer and they'll have $48 million. 48, or it rounds up to $49 million, is not anything to sneeze at, right? So that's what Paul George's, that's his contract situation right now. Now, Kawhi Leonard got a very solid team-friendly deal in today's market. Remember, this is all like the inflation. It's all going to keep going up, right? By 28, 29, we could have insane contracts, even more insane than what they already are. And Kawhi Leonard got 3 years, about $150 million. It was about $153 million for 3 years. So around $50 million a year for the next 3 years, which would give us a little bit more flexibility to sign Paul George and James Harden to more affordable stuff to keep them, and not be too far over the second apron. But, I mean, Kawhi Leonard getting that much money guaranteed. Now, like, what are we doing? Because I don't know if people want to trade for somebody who would be taking $50 million per year off their books, or put it on their books, and we don't know what you're going to get. It's a wild card. Anyone that wants to trade for Kawhi Leonard, it's a wild card, because you don't know if you get him healthy in the playoffs, then it's like, oh my God, you have a chance of going all the way. But can he really withstand that? We haven't seen it since the bubble, where he got a huge hiatus, and even in 2019, towards the end of the playoffs, if you remember, he was like limping, he was limping, and it was, I wouldn't say it was tough to watch, because I thought he was still just phenomenal in the way he got it done. But he definitely didn't look 100%. Gimpy was the word I was looking for. I combined gimpy and limping. But, man, I just can't believe we did that so soon, because we were like afraid of these tough conversations. And I know, here's the biggest fear, right, of the organization. Okay, they opt out of their contracts and just leave for nothing. Let me just say this. Why the heck would they do that? Because if hypothetically, if Kawhi was healthy and we lost in some round, it would not have been, oh, the 3 stars did everything they could and everyone else let them down. I have such a hard time believing that would have been the case. Paul George or James Harden would have fallen flat. Even maybe Kawhi, who knows? But I wouldn't put my money on that, to be honest, if he's healthy. He doesn't piss me off from a basketball perspective very often. He's such a great basketball player. I love watching him play. But it's just like this weird feeling where I'm like, I haven't gone any great. I say great for a reason. I've had some good memories watching Kawhi live, mainly this year, but I haven't had that many great memories with Kawhi Leonard on my basketball team. And after 5 years of us getting him and me thinking he was gonna end up being my favorite player of all time, basketball means a lot to me. People understand. People that follow me and listen to me all the time know how much this sport means to me. For Kawhi Leonard, me to think he was going to be my favorite basketball player in the history of the game, because he was going to lead my team to a first chip, and now I'm just like, I have no 5 years in, I don't have many great memories with him on the team, is like so sad. It's really sad. And it's unfortunate for Kawhi, man. It really is, because I know the work the guy puts in. I'm not going to knock his work ethic ever, because everybody says it's top of the line. And I've never seen a basketball player improve from day one in their career from a skill development perspective than Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he was supposed to be the better Bruce Bowen. Now he's $50 million man, 2-time Finals MVP, best part of championship team in Toronto. It's really insane. But the fact of the matter is, we committed to Kawhi in that moment. So we were afraid of them leaving for nothing. And I'm saying it just wouldn't have happened, in my opinion, leaving for nothing. People that think that Kawhi maybe would have gotten annoyed with Paul George and James Harden and left, I just don't believe so because, one, Kawhi Leonard chose to be here, and the Clippers give him everything he wants. They give him everything. They gave him Paul George. They gave him his point guards. They consult him on everything. They let him load manage the first year. It's just he gets what he wants, and we protect him with his injuries and all that stuff. It's just now you've committed to Kawhi, so a lot of Clipper fans want to blow it up and go a different direction. How can we do that when, one, this is another reason why they paid Kawhi. This free agent class this summer is not very great. Paul George is like one of the top 3 names involved. It's like PG, Siakam, Tyrese Maxey. Like, those are the biggest names in this conversation. So if those are the biggest names in the conversation and we've got one of them, like, that means that the free agent class this summer is not great. So that goes back to the conversation of, are you opening Intuit Dome with no stars? And I think people really need to stop with that stuff. I think the more people start saying it, the more people start believing how nonsense this is. And here's why I say that. Let's say the Clippers did choose to blow it up and never re-sign Kawhi. And they're like, you know what? Like, here's the thing. You guys can go walk, right? But it could be a James Harden situation where the teams that really would need a guy like that don't have the room to sign them for the contracts that they want, so they could opt into their final year like Chris Paul did, and then we can trade them to somewhere, right, and get something back. So that way they can kind of get what they want, is that we can find a destination that suits them, and then we get something as well, maybe some draft capital back or something. But then that goes back to the conversation of, do you want to open your new stadium with no stars? And I think by signing Kawhi, like, at the very least, if Harden walks, if Paul George doesn't work out, we'll have Kawhi, which is ridiculous because he's the least available of them all. And you really think a basketball crazed city in Los Angeles, let's say we would definitely maybe not have the same attendance as last year. Let's say we were still in Staples Center, right? And we lost all 3 of the stars. Yeah, our attendance would drop. It would be closer to like bottom third of the league. You know what I mean? But it wouldn't be like, I don't think it would be the worst in the league. I think Los Angeles is so basketball crazy. Like, you really think that we open up a brand new state-of-the-art stadium in Inglewood and people just aren't going to show up because, like, who's on the court? Like, people don't even care at that point. It's professional basketball in a brand new stadium. The Clippers, people need to stop underestimating the fan base that we have. It's actually kind of ridiculous at this point. And then the amount of Laker fans and neutrals that go to our games during the regular season is like a lot. And you really are telling me for how the amount of Laker fan friends I have that have told me I can't wait to see the new stadium and what it looks like is ridiculous. So for people to just act like in the first year people aren't going to show up because, oh, they don't have this many stars is nonsense. And it's a scare tactic to keep 2-on-3 together, and it pisses me off. But coming up, we're going to be talking about Paul George's contract situation. I got to tell you a little something about GameTime. GameTime is the best place to get the greatest deals on last-minute tickets. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, so you actually can wait last minute when it comes to this. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. It's the best. All you got to do is this. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so I was getting a little heated there towards the end. Got to calm down, here on a Wednesday afternoon. Oof. So yeah, I'm not happy with the fact that now it's like we can't blow it up because... See, the free agent thing is valid. The free agent class wouldn't have been great, but we would have had cap going forward. I mean, it feels like we would have had more flexibility. Now, there were also some people saying that it's good you give them money because people would rather trade for a guy on guaranteed money than a guy on an expiring contract when it's that level of player. Because when it's that level of player, you're like, you don't want to trade a lot for a great player, and then it's a rental, right? Which is the whole controversy around Indiana trading for Siakam. But the way that they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, he's going back and he's getting paid too. Here's the thing. That, what I just said, is extremely valid, but the problem is when the biggest thing is availability, then having somebody on guaranteed money is a disaster. That's why John Wall's contract sunk the Wizards for so long. So it's a complete disaster. The fact that we have him guaranteed, because now people are like, I don't want to pay Kawhi Leonard for $50 million if he's not going to play in the playoffs when it matters most. There's such a risk around it. So now it's the conversation of Paul George. James Harden's probably getting re-signed because we gave up a first rounder unprotected for him and pick swaps, and solid role players and expiring contracts that could have been used for something else to get James Harden. So you don't just let that person walk. Thing is, James Harden's going to want a good deal. It won't be a max deal, but something along the ballpark of like $40 million for 3 years, like $120 million, or like $160 million, and that last year's a player option. But it's like, that means we're going to be paying 35, 36, and 37-year-old James Harden $40 million per year. I know today's market is increasing, so like that number's not going to sound as bad in a couple of years, but it's like, oh, brother. I don't even think James is an all-star level player, but like this is just, it's just interesting to see how checked out so many Clipper fans are now on 213. They're so defeated after this last injury. I mean, I think the view count was obviously going to drop for like this channel, for example, like after the playoffs ended, because people are just over it. They want to break. Me, of course, you got to stay on the grind. But it's a clear like, man, I'm just kind of over it. I'm hurt. I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated, and you see it on Twitter too. So many Clipper fans just kind of like gone off the app and stuff like that, and there are some that are just more committed to the 2-1-3 era than others, and a lot of that is based on if you're a stan or not, or a lot of it is. But Paul George, so James Harden is going to come back. That's the moral of that story, right? Because you guaranteed Kawhi money. The only way that James Harden was going to walk, or like the Clippers would be okay with letting him go, is if they were going to rebuild and we're like, you know what, this didn't work out. We just want to clear the cap. Paul George is now in the situation where he's in what Kawhi would have been, as I said. He can opt into that final year of his contract, but knowing Paul George and the injuries that he's got to try to get his money right now because this is the last big contract he's going to get. Now, the Clippers, it's very clear they aren't going to max him out. They do not. They're not going to pay him the same amount as Kawhi, it seems. They've kind of come to the conclusion that there's no way you are worth as much as Kawhi this time. And the funny part is the Clippers have been so good to Paul George too. They gave him a huge contract, a new contract, even though his old one was good, right after he choked in the bubble and was horrific. Like the lowest moment of his entire career besides, the injury. But this was like, nobody is blaming someone for the injury. That's a freak accident. Actually, everybody feels bad for him. When he choked in the bubble, it was literally like, you are just not who you think you are, or not who people think you are. This is embarrassing. Like, look what you did, and all that. And the Clippers paid him. And he rewarded us with that conference finals, 2021 Paul George, I really want to make this clear. I know people are annoyed with him, and so am I. And like all the quotes and the disappointment, but I will never allow that to cloud that memory of 2021. I wanted us to beat the second round at the bare minimum so badly when these two got together, and at the very least that they got us that. And Paul George is the one that pushed us over the top in the second round. I know we wouldn't have gone out of the first round without Kawhi, but it's the second round that was the barrier for us, not the first. And it's also about being at the games with full capacity. Like that memory, it's the greatest night in Clipper history, and we always have Paul George to thank. And I hate when people say it's all about Terrence Mann, and I'm a biggest Terrence Mann fan. Who's getting him those shots? And Paul George was so like big time in that comeback. He still made shots. He still commanded the game. It was a different level of confidence. It was kind of an unexplainable feeling being in there that like, wow, like we're about to beat these guys. We're about to do this. And it's just our night. And you know why it was our night? Because we were allowed to have that night. And that was because of Game 5. And that was because Paul George's, I would put it up there with any playoff game he's ever had. So I'm always going to be thankful. But when it comes to right now, a lot of Clipper fans are set with Paul George. They're done. They're like, you know what? We know you're not going to get better. We don't want to have another year of you constantly kind of deflecting about how You're underachieving, man. You averaged 19 points, and Kawhi Leonard didn't even play 4 games. You let James Harden, your own teammate that's there to make life easier for you, outscore you. So the question is Philly going to offer him that max? Because from everything that we've been told, Shams Charania went on the Up and Adams and said, like 2 days ago or yesterday, that he talked to Lou Williams and Paul George does not want to leave. Like, why would he want to leave? He literally requested a trade when he had already re-signed a year before. That's another thing that made me feel weird about getting Paul, was that he had committed to Westbrook and Oklahoma City, and then he asked for a trade. And I don't believe the story that Westbrook asked out first. I don't believe that, because Westbrook's such a loyal guy to OKC. Everything about Westbrook doesn't... Paul George, to me, is way more willing to be like, oh my God, that's a great opportunity. Kawhi rang my phone to go play back at home. Westbrook, with the way he was to Oklahoma City, I just don't believe that whole story where, Russ was trying to get out and then Kawhi was like, hey, Russ was calling me trying to play, but I'd rather play with you. Like, that just doesn't sound like that sounds like high school gossip and stuff. Like, I don't think that was the case. But here's my thing. Paul George might want to stay, but it really depends. 2 things. What are the Sixers going to offer, and how much does Paul George care about max money versus still get $40 million per year for a couple years, and with all the money he's already made? I don't know. Does he want to move to cold Philadelphia and move his whole family? I don't know. So it really depends. I mean, at this point, hopefully we can sign PG to a deal that's not too bad, and same with Harden, and be competitive next year, which we still will be. I still think when Kawhi's there, there'll be the illusion that, oh my God, if this team stays healthy, we could do it. It will be like a 50-win team. If they can stay as healthy as this year, can make some moves around the margins to get a little younger, more athletic. But it's very far from a championship. It's very far. And, I'd hope that eventually we can trade these contracts for, when we do end up rebuilding, trade these contracts for something. But the moral of the story is, it's all about how much does Paul George want, and how willing is he to leave to get that money, and then how much are the Sixers going to pay him? Are they willing to give him the max? Coming up, going to be talking about a certain email that was sent by the Clippers to fans that is just showing you more clear about the direction of the team. And also, Ty Lue, any conversation about his recent contract or his recent situation or his upcoming situation? Going to be talking about that coming up. This next segment is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all carry around different stressors, big and small. Everybody's got their own things, issues going on, and not even issues, but their thoughts. And sometimes it's hard when you keep those bottled up and you don't have anybody that you trust to release it to, or even the people that you trust don't seem to understand, and it can start to affect you in a negative way. Therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever's weighing you down in life. I've had therapy in certain moments, mainly when I was in elementary school. I was going through a tough time, sometimes in classes, with teachers, some students, had some falling out with some friends. And I had a couple of therapy sessions, and it really did help me as a kid. And so if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, so back here to talk a little bit about, before I go to the email, I just want to talk about the payroll real quick. So currently under contract for next season, Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell, who's making $19 million. I think that's a really solid contract in today's game, honestly. Even though he didn't play great in the playoffs, I think a 6th Man of the Year candidate that's one of the more consistent players on our team, getting $19 million. It's very solid. PJ Tucker has a player option that he's opted into, $11 million. That is a complete drag, in my opinion. It's very annoying. And who would want to take 11? I mean, $11 million is not that much, but who wants to take that for a 39-year-old? That was the price that came with Harden. Zubats is under contract for about $12 million next year. That's a really good contract in today's game. Really good contract. Terrence Mann, $11 million. I think that's pretty solid. Mason Plumlee's off the books. I would not bring him back. Just let him go. Let him go. He might even retire. After that injury he had, he's 34. Well, I mean, unless he's fiending a championship. Russell Westbrook has a player option. That's going to be very interesting. And Shams said, same thing. Nobody knows if he's going to opt in. It's the similar situation with Paul George. It's like, does he really want to leave LA? He's now been in Los Angeles for 3 straight seasons. Does he want to leave? I mean, we know he wasn't that happy with the situation. Coming off the bench, being limited. He had a really bad series against Dallas. Who knows? And if I'm being honest with you, I don't like Russell Westbrook, the backup point guard. I really don't. I don't think he's allowed to work through the mistakes and get the run. And that, again, it is a knock on him that he needs all these things to go his way to get the best out of him. But if you don't start him, I'd rather have Bones as our energizer bunny off the bench to develop him a little bit and let Russ go. And that pains me to say because he's one of my favorite players of all time. But we're committed. We're gonna commit to Harden, who's the better player at this stage. Brandon Boston's off the books. Are we gonna want to keep him? Keep him. There's no point of keeping him if you don't play him, which would be annoying because Jerry West he's 22 years old. And Jerry West, man, he's 3 years younger than me. Jerry West looked us right in the face and said that he's going to be an all-star one day. And whether or not, right now, I don't believe that to be true. But here's the thing. If Jerry West has enough confidence to say that, there's a player in there that we need that deserves a consistent shot. Deserves a consistent shot. And he doesn't really get that. So are we going to re-sign him? I hope we do. Because I'm committed to the future. I'm not committed to 2-on-3. It's just, until they show me that Kawhi can be healthy for the course of a series, then they don't deserve any belief from fans in my eyes. But everybody to each their own. I'm not going to police fandom over here. Daniel Tice is also off the books. I think I would bring him back, honestly. I think he's very serviceable. Kai Jones, Jordan Miller, Xavier Moon, Moussa Diabate, these guys are not on contract, so we'll see what happens with them. Obviously, I would try to keep them all. And, some of them are going to be on 2 ways probably. But it's if at this point, it's one of the biggest problems with our roster was the older players that we have, which are the main guys, got overworked because there's so many guys in the roster that you just can't even play with the level of play that we need to be at to accomplish the set goals. So essentially, because we're putting ourselves out there as a championship contender, there are certain guys that these young guys are not ready to play at that level. So they stick out like sore thumbs in terms of playing with all these guys that have experience and are good, and they're just kind of learning the NBA game. This isn't like a situation with Christian Brown last year. But here's the funny part. Christian Brown, he didn't look as good this season. But in last season, he was a player that can come in and got himself into a championship rotation. And none of our young guys are as good as Christian Brown. As a role player. Brandon Boston is not a guy that he's just going to sit there and shoot and defend. He's going to have to work with the ball a little bit. His role, ideally to me, on a good team, would be a sixth man come in and get buckets. He'll have his inefficient games, but he will get buckets. And he'll play better defense than your average sixth man that just comes in and scores and creates offense. But, I mean, if he started and had a leeway of look, the team's not going to be good, but we want you to develop as a player, who knows where his confidence could go at that point. The thing is, we don't have those guys. So having these guys on the back end of the roster that can't even play is a waste to me, to 2-1-3. It's are you committed to us or not? I am not. But if the franchise is, then we got to get rid of those young guys. But then it's we have no young players, and that's a huge thing. So it'll be really interesting to see where we go. I just wanted to read that. Oh, whole point of this segment. Ty Lue, as of now, no progression on a contract extension. He is under contract next year. Farbad, our beat writer, which he should be having an appearance coming up soon, I would think. He said that the contract, which I believed as well, was running through 2024-25 as the final year. But then what's his name? Woj said it goes through 25-26. So, like, are all the details not fully clear? I am not sure. I always thought it was 2024-25, but I don't know. By the way, there was a report from Kevin O'Connor, like the Ringer guys, that the Sixers believe they have a real chance to sign Paul George. But I mean, I don't know how much stock I put into that. Not like questioning the Ringer sources, but like I bet you the Sixers believe they have a real chance. But like, who cares? Like, what are you going to throw at him, and how much is he willing to take? Is he willing to take more money and go to freaking Philly? I don't know. My last thing is the email sent from Gillian Zucker, our president, or our CEO of Halo Sports and Entertainment. I'm going to read it verbatim and then we'll talk for a sec. Clipper Nation. Every NBA season begins with goals and expectations. 7 months ago, we set some ambitious ones and accomplished many. We handled the regular season with the respect it deserves. We kept our locker room chemistry strong and strengthened our reputation as the most attractive destination in the NBA for elite talent. As a result, we added a fourth Hall of Fame talent in James Harden, won the Pacific Division title, and earned home court advantage for the first round of the playoffs. Despite that, we are all disappointed our season has come to an end. No more than Steve, but there's a lot to be encouraged by when considering our overall progress toward the ultimate goal. Our front office has done a tremendous job building this team, and every offseason they find unexpected ways to improve our roster for the next season. I have no doubt this offseason will be no different. Expect us to be relentless in that pursuit. As we wait to learn those details, let's not forget the moments that brought us to our feet this year. There were so many, and we cannot thank you enough for being with us every step of the way. When this team was firing on all cylinders, they were a thing of beauty. I know you all experienced that too, what this talented group is capable of under the guiding hand of Ty Lue. All of us, including Steve, are focused on a brighter future, and in a few short months, we will move into a new home and a new era. There is no place in the basketball world like Intuit Dome, and we can't wait for you to see it for yourselves. A building worthy of your fandom in a future that will redefine it. Until then, Gillian. Holy crap! That letter, reading it for the first time, was even worse reading it this time. Oh my God, that might need a whole episode in itself. And this is not to get mad at Gillian Zucker. She's a businesswoman. She's doing her job. All right. Should we break this down? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my freaking God. Okay. Let's see. We handled the regular season with the respect it deserves. Do you know what that acknowledges? That acknowledges that you didn't before. So let's make that very clear. 1, I like that admittance. I actually like that part of the letter. And they're right. They did. We did handle the regular season with respect. 2, we kept our locker room chemistry strong. That's facts. The team likes each other. And strengthened our reputation as the most attractive destination in the NBA for elite talent. That's debatable. It's clear that we are a destination now, though. As a result, we added a fourth Hall of Fame talent. Okay, it's not a guarantee Paul George is going to be in the Hall of Fame, but he probably will be. I don't know if adding James Harden when you don't go any round further is something to brag about necessarily. Unless your whole goal is to just make it seem like, oh, we could not attract players like that before, and now we can. Look, it's not moving me. I know you can. You got Kawhi and Paul George. Won the Pacific Division title. Whoop-de-freaking-do. But see, we didn't win these things before, so like I gotta have to be appreciative. But like, no, not with the expectations of this era. And earn home court advantage in the first round. Okay. Despite that, we were all disappointed our season has come to an end. I agree. Okay, you are disappointed. There's a lot to be encouraged by when considering our overall progress towards the ultimate goal. No, it's not. You're acting like our team is young. They're not young. They're getting older. It's not. You progress by winning one more game in the first round and winning some more regular season games. One higher seed. Please. You do not progress that much in the grand scheme of things. Your front office has done a tremendous job building this team, and every offseason they find unexpected ways to improve our roster. No, they do not. That's not true. It's not true. They've made many mistakes. Isaiah Hartenstein, that was improving the roster. Letting him go for John Wall because the players wanted it. Give me a break. Unexpected ways. Everybody saw the Harden trade coming from a mile away. Getting pushed by players to sign Westbrook when you were never believing in him. Come on. I have no doubt this offseason will be different. Expect us to be relentless in that pursuit as we wait to learn those details. Let's not forget the moments that brought us to our feet. Oh, my God. So, translation to me is, I know you guys are angry, but don't forget that we actually had some good times this year. And then when the team was firing on all cylinders, they're a thing of beauty. I know you all experienced that too. It's like, you guys know it. I know it. That we can still, you know what these guys are capable of when we're healthy. It's the same story every year. You're not fooling anybody. And even when we're healthy, we don't look better than Minnesota and Denver to me. Or Boston. Actually, no, Boston's debatable. They play kind of nasty hoops. But Denver and Minnesota, there's no way. You watch those 4 games we played against them this year, and you're going to take 1 game sample size against them on the road that we won that game by 1 point to say, oh, you know what? I think we could have beaten them in the playoffs. Nothing suggests that. In any way, shape, or form. The Thunder are getting younger. They're getting younger. Like, please. Like, are focused on a brighter future. A future. We have one of the dimmest futures in the league besides the Intuit Dome. So, yeah. It just sounds like a whole lot of, like, you think you can fool us, man. You cannot. And I'm going to be on this pod telling you the truth. We're in a rough spot. Is there any chance in hell that we get some younger players, we stay healthy for a lot of the season again, we get a top 3 seed and Kawhi magically stays healthy and leads us to a chip and we win our first chip in the Intuit Dome? Sounds like fairy tale land. But sports have done crazier things, and there's been crazier things in sports. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper, LA Sports content and NBA content right now. Talking about every game. Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Let me know what you thought of the episode and what you thought of giving Kawhi the extension. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers. Till the day we die, right?